winners and our losers from this past weekend and dive into a little college football spring edition. Get things started with SEC baseball. You have Georgia at the top at 11-4, Missouri at the bottom at 3-12, and you've got a pile of 14 teams ranging from 9-5 all the way to 5-10 in the 2 through 15 range. Before we dive in on this past weekend, to me, this feels like the most wide open SEC, except for maybe Georgia, where they just lost a series, and then Missouri, who appears to be the doormat again this year after this past weekend. But I feel like on any given day, anybody could sweep anybody in these series this year. Lot more clarity or parity in SEC baseball this year. What are your thoughts on that, Kevin?
So I would agree that anybody can win a series. I'm not sure a sweep, but I think you could take the top two teams out. Take Georgia, take Texas, put them to the side. Take the bottom two teams out, Missouri, South Carolina.
Now we're talking.
I think you take those 12 teams, and you throw them out, and they play against each other 4 times, and any team could win the series in those 4 games. Um, I do think it is that, we talked about it before the season when we did our previews about how we basically said there's very little difference between 5 and 12. So maybe it's between 3 and 13 or 3 and 14. So expand it a little bit. But when we talked about how that we really thought that parity was going to be there this year, and I absolutely do think it is. Um, and I would agree that most of those teams could win the series, from it. We'll talk about winners and losers. I'll throw one more team in there that I might not believe would win as many series as another, just because baseball's one with pitching and defense, and there's another team that's struggling in that area besides Missouri and South Carolina. Sweets, any thoughts?
Does that team wear purple and gold, Kev?
I think they do.
Awesome. I'm just curious. Now, I agree. It's I still personally think Texas is the best team in the conference. They had a rough weekend, but I still at the end of the day with those 3 pitchers, they're going to pitch well more often than not. And I still think they're the class of the SEC. But Georgia, like we talked about, people worried about them hitting early in the year. Well, now they're sitting at 11-4, and they're 2 games up on everybody else in the conference halfway through. So I guess they can hit a little bit. I think the biggest thing though is the inconsistency on defense for many SEC teams, as you said before, Kevin. The inability to just make routine plays is costing good teams a lot of games, and it's going to cost a few teams a regional spot. I get the sneaking suspicion come a month and a half from now. Where are we going, D-Mac?
Yeah, we are going to transition to winners and losers.
And we're off.
Added a little visual or a little audio effect there for the transition.
I was like Chicken Little. I thought the sky was falling. Damn, screaming like that.
Let's get started with winners. Sweets, who is your winner of the week?
So my winner of the week is Ole Miss, sweeping LSU. Ole Miss came in. LSU was 6-6. Now they're 6-9. Ole Miss came in and just did what they had to do. They outpitched LSU. They out hit LSU. They played better defense than LSU. They coached better than LSU. There was nothing that LSU did better than Ole Miss this weekend. There was we battled back on Sunday and made it a game, but Friday night, 3 runs. You're in there, and then you're late in the game we give it up again. Saturday wasn't even close, and then Sunday we get way behind, dig a big hole, and try to come back and win it. But if we could make a few defensive plays and get a hit just occasionally with guys on base, it'd be a lot different season. But right now LSU baseball is really bad. DMAC, who's your loser of the week?
My loser of the week is going to be the Missouri Tigers, a team that coming into the season I thought very highly of. I think I've predicted them to win series 3 times in the SEC this year. This week was not one of them, mainly because I was away from the podcast, or I would have taken them at home against the Gamecocks. They're a much improved team, though. I will say that, but everybody in the SEC that they're playing also got better. There is no reason for them to get swept by South Carolina. Their pitching kept them in a lot of games too. The bats that were scoring 20 runs in several games early on have gone completely dark. Tyler Macon is either hurt or not playing. He is not taking an at bat in 2 or 3 weeks. So all their big time hitters are just like either hurt or not playing. There's very little news that you get from the Missouri Tigers baseball team too.
They're facing SEC pitching now is what their issue is.
Well, and they've got quite a few guys who haven't even played much in SEC play, whether it's injury or like Javen Pimentel, we knew was hurt, but he may be done for the season because he has not even thrown a bullpen in a while. It just I wish that the Missouri Tigers gave some news about their team. It's
But
never
to your point, in the non-con, Isaiah Frost was hitting over 300, playing very well, starting every game. As soon as the conference season started, he sits on the bench. So go figure.
Yeah, I mean Tyler Macon, which he played 2 weeks of SEC ball and struggled, but he was a guy who was hitting 566 coming into SEC play and has not played in 3 weeks now. So Mizzou, they're my losers of the week. But shout out to their pitching staff that has been much better last year. If they could hit like they did last year, they probably would have won the series. So that is my loser. I'm gonna jump into my winner here too. That's gonna be the Auburn Tigers, who were coming off. They got swept a few weeks ago by Alabama. Had lost 2 to Texas the week before. Looked improved against Arkansas 2 weeks ago, and then took 2 out of 3 against Kentucky at home. What I liked most was the Friday night game. Jackson Jelkin, who has been electric for Kentucky, was handed his first loss of the season by the Auburn Tigers. Jelkin went 2 innings, gave up only 3 earned runs, but 8 total runs. And Auburn cruised to a victory. And then Alex Petrovic was able to go the distance in 7 innings on Sunday, get another win and an 11-0 shutout. Auburn was a team that needed to group a couple wins together in back-to-back series, kind of get things back on track. They're a team that's sitting at 8-7 in conference play, so they need all the wins that they can get. But the Auburn Tigers, my winners of the week. Coach Butch Thompson has these guys ready to play again. What about you, Kevin?
Yeah, so let me start with my winner of the week. I'm going to go Arkansas. The Razorbacks needed a sweep. They've had some tough weekends, and they went to Alabama and got a sweep. I think Alabama going into the weekend was, let's see, they were 8-4, and came out of the weekend at 8-7. TJ Pompey had a big weekend for Arkansas. 7 hits, 2 home runs, 6 RBIs over the weekend. Van Horn did an interesting thing. Geichel was their Friday night starter. He hasn't been terrible by any means. He scuffled a little bit, So he was really good out of the bullpen last year, and Van Horn stuck him back in the bullpen, moved Dietz up to Friday night, and juggled their pitching a little bit. It seemed to ignite the whole team. And so I want to go Arkansas, my winner of the week. Van Horn does something like that a lot of times in a year. He does not just let things sit. But I would also say this: he doesn't over tinker. Sometimes a coach can kind of over tinker with things. I think Van Horn does it at the right moment when he needs to get a lift out of his team, change things up, bring some energy. And he did that. Pompey is a guy that coming into the year, everybody thought highly of him. But he struggled a lot this year. But he really had a good weekend. He's hitting 267 on the season, so that tells you where he was. But he is batting 333 in SEC play after this Alabama game, so he's playing a little better there from that. So winner of the week would be Arkansas. Loser of the week, I'm going to go opposite of what Sweets went. I'm taking LSU. They got themselves back to 6-6 by winning 2 series in a row, and then just go on the road and get swept. And not only that, they lost to Bethune-Cookman last week. So you've got to count that in there. So they've got 4 losses in a row. And I think it's time, we're far enough along this season. We're halfway through SEC play, over halfway through the season, that you can look at a team's stats and you can say, okay, this is telling me something. LSU's 14th in the SEC in earned run average, almost 5, I think 4.95, 4.97. And then the worst team defensively in SEC play, fielding at 963. I think you got to add that fielding percentage. Stephen Milam is one of the best shortstops in the league defensively. Up until a couple weeks ago, he hadn't had an error all year. So and shortstop's going to get 25-30% of your plays. And so you got a guy there that has an outstanding fielding percentage, but yet your team is bad. And I'm also going to go a little further here. If you watch the game Saturday, that game just got away from him defensively, got run ruled. You had the play at second base where Dardar's foot wasn't on the base. LSU's shifting so much, and it's almost as if they want Milam to make the play every time. So they've taken from shortstop over to second base if you got a left-handed hitter up. That's a lot of tinkering, and they're doing it so much, and it's affecting them defensively. And you got people, footwork is important, and we talk about how Milam has great footwork, but you got these other guys that maybe aren't as good defensively. Dardar is one. York, when he was in at first, now granted, first base is first base. You should be able to play that. But when you're moving your middle infielders, you're moving your third baseman to different spots. There's different angles that they got to make a throw. There's different footwork for those positions. And I just think all that is just too much tinkering, and it's really cost them defensively. Again, the outfield's not making a lot of errors, but you look at our errors that we've had at second base, first base, some at third. It's just extensive. Some behind the plate catching, also wild pitches. We've not been good defensively behind the plate either. So I think when you look at the numbers, it tells the story. LSU is not a good baseball team right now. RPI 75. They're an average team. Now, can they get hot? Can they win some games? Yes, they can. I think for that to happen, though, Evans has got to get consistent on Friday night. He pitched well enough last Friday to win a game if they got some hits. We knew Elliott and Evans was going to be a good matchup, and it was. But they need to get more back, push Schmidt back to Sunday, I believe, to give them a better chance. They're having to win Sunday games with Slugfest, and that's really hurting their chances, to me, to win some of these series. If you get more in Evans, if you can split one of those two and you pitch Schmidt on Sunday, I think you have a better chance of getting those. So all that being said, you've got to get good defensively. Simpson's played second base. He played Sunday. He's starting tonight at second. Maybe that's the answer. But I think you got to look at defense first. LSU won the College World Series last year, and they were the best defensive team in the SEC. Baseball is a game that that an error that opens up a gate. Let's say, and again, another thing they've struggled with where their earned run average has hurt them is walks. So if you give up walks, you give up errors, you give up extra bases, that is a recipe to lose games. So you go from a inning, and this happened Friday night. The errors and things opened up in a 3-run inning. You give an inning where you might give up a run or maybe none, just putting up a crooked number, and you get 2 or 3, and that's hard to come back from in baseball. So LSU is definitely my loser for the week. Not just because they got swept by Ole Miss, but I think we have to accept where they're at. Can they turn that? I think they can, but they have to commit to playing the defensive guys. They played Dardar hoping he would hit. I think you got to go back to Simpson at second. I think you got to leave him there. I think you got to eliminate the shift some. They've taken York out at first, and I think that's a good thing. And I do think they got to figure out what they want to do behind the plate. If Cerna's the better defensive guy, go with him. Look, maybe Yaman's the better defensive guy. He looked good against Tennessee. Maybe you go with him. You could still DH Aaron Beatty, play Cerna at first some that with him and Braun. You've got to figure that part out, and then I think you got to go with it from there. Any thoughts from you guys on LSU? I mean, this is a team that has a chance of winning the College World Series last year and totally missing the tournament right now.
Yeah, with this LSU team, I know they're excited. Cooper Moore should be back to pitch out of the bullpen some this weekend. He was their Saturday guy to start. So if he can give a couple good innings this weekend, if they can get him back into the rotation and not have to ask guys to do too much out of the bullpen or piece together Sundays, I think they'll have a chance to get back on track. Got to cut down some of the defensive mistakes, need better at bats. There's definitely good things with this team, but nothing's going right now for the Tigers. What are your thoughts, Sweets?
Yeah, it just basically it boils down to consistency in all facets of the game. Consistency in fielding, pitching, and hitting, and coaching too. Because Jay with these switches, I mean it's every time he moves those guys, you're like you know what's going to happen. They're going to hit it to the hole, and I'll be damned if it doesn't happen. Sometimes you just got to play baseball. You got to stop all the silliness and just go out, put your guys where they're supposed to be. Let your team go out there, have confidence in themselves, and play ball. When and those guys know that what Jay's doing when he's moving Milam all over the place. They know he's the stud on the team, and they want him to field the ball. But damn, it shouldn't be that hard. Shouldn't be that hard. That'll take me to my loser or my loser of the week is going to be the Mississippi State Bulldogs, who for the first time I read in their program's history have been swept 2 weekends in a row. So that's pretty impressive that's never happened before for Mississippi State. But at the end of the day, Mississippi State this weekend just didn't hit the ball. They lost 6-5. Could have won the game on Friday. Just had a few things go sideways for them. Tennessee snuck it out 6-5. Scored 2 runs on Saturday and 2 runs on Sunday. And let me tell you what, you score 2 runs in the SEC, you're not going to win a lot of games. I don't care what team you are and who you got pitching. 2 runs just isn't enough. I don't know what's going on. I mean, teams just hit soft spots in the season sometimes. I still think that Mississippi State's a really talented team, and they're going to be there at the end of the year. There's no doubt in my mind they're going to come back, and they're not going to keep losing games. They're going to win at least 15 games in the SEC, if not more. They'll be fine. But hats off to Tennessee for coming back. Ellender, a lot of pressure on him, so this sweep was big for him. I'm sure that he is happy to have the natives off his back for a minute. But we'll see if Tennessee can keep that going. Where are we going next?
Yeah, I want to ask both of you guys a question. let's say season ends tomorrow. You're on the committee to select teams to play postseason baseball this year. How many SEC teams do you have on your list?
I go 13. I think you stop LSU right now. I think LSU's out. But maybe Vandy 12 or 13. LSU's out, Missouri's out, South Carolina's out. LSU can play their way back in. Vandy's probably out too because they've not done well in the non-conference piece. Their RPI is actually at 100, so it's below LSU's. Even their conference records a game better.
Yeah.
So I would stop at 12.
I'm with you, Kev. I think that Vandy and LSU, neither team gets in because of their preseason and midweek games. Vandy's sitting at 21-16. LSU's at 22-15, only a game better. It's you just got to be better. Like I said, you just got to be more consistent. That goes for both of those teams, and Tennessee too. Because Tennessee, Oklahoma. I mean, when you look at it, 7 and 8. There are Mississippi State, Kentucky, Oklahoma, Tennessee, and Vandy. You got 5 teams at 7-8. LSU 1 game behind them. So a lot of movement still going to happen. I think that LSU is going to make a regional. I can't imagine that we're going to finish 10-20, and if we do, we certainly don't deserve to. But I think it's going to get better.
I think with LSU and Vanderbilt, you look at where the RPIs are in the 70s and then right around 100. I don't know if 13 SEC wins is going to get either of these teams into postseason. I almost think if you're LSU and Vandy, like 14's the number you have to reach, but you probably need to be 500 in the SEC to really feel good about getting in. Tennessee, who LSU beat last weekend. You look at Tennessee, even though they're 7 and 8 in the SEC, their RPI is number 29 in the nation. You look at a team like South Carolina, who's coming off a sweep. They're only a few spots behind LSU and about 15, 20 spots ahead of Vanderbilt in the RPI right now. So, I would I would have 12 in as well right now. I don't know if there's a realm of possibility unless somebody makes a really late run and wins the SEC tournament to get the automatic that you really end up with. I don't think 14's attainable this year for the SEC.
LSU and Vandy and Tennessee to a lesser extent has pissed 14 away with their inability to win midweek games, and they're just not playing that well right now either. But Tennessee had a sweep, but other than that, they hadn't been good in the SEC play. I think a lot of it is who are the wins against. If LSU's sitting there with 13 wins and say they swept a Texas, whatever. I don't even know, but say they sweep a Texas or a Georgia. Well, then, now you're saying, yeah, well, they're sitting here at 13 wins, but they did sweep Georgia, who's number 4 in RPI. So, I think so. I think that will have a little bit to do with how many teams get in as well as quality of wins. So if LSU beats some of them better teams, their RPI should rise accordingly.
Yeah, let's look at LSU's schedule while we're at it here, talking about what they need to get to. So they play A&M this weekend, home series. Best scenario, maybe 2. Hope to get 1. So they have on the schedule, they have Georgia. They play South Carolina at home. South Carolina is one where you should get 2. Mike could get a sweep there. So let's say you get a sweep there, you're back to, let's just say, add them to where they're at now. You're 9-9. Going to Georgia though, man, that's a tough one. You might hope to get 1 there the way they're playing right now. So if you got 1 there, 1 against A&M, let's just say, sweep South Carolina. You've got, let's see, they've got also
Mississippi State this month at Duty Noble.
Mississippi State, yes. and that's going to be a tough one, even though they're not playing well.
And then you wrap up your season at home against the Florida Gators.
Yes.
So you need, in a scenario where you take one against A&M, one against Georgia, 3 against Carolina, you really still need to win state and win Florida series to get to 15 wins.
I think LSU's good at 14.
I think there would be. Yeah, I think they would be good at 14. I'm in total agreement with where their RPI is at 13 is not. I think they got to get to 14, but I think SEC teams at 14 could. But to your point, D-Mac, you got to win. You got to win 2 of those to do that. I mean, if you sweep South Carolina, 1 against Georgia, 1 against Texas A&M, that gives you 5. You need 8. So you got to win 2 out of 3 there against Florida. And what was the other one we were talking about?
Mississippi State at
Mississippi
Duty
State.
Noble.
Yeah. You
Which
got
they've not
to
been
go
good
3 and 3 in those 6.
there. But and you have to sweep South Carolina at this point.
Yeah, that's
Not easy to sweep anybody.
Yeah. No, but I mean, if they've put themselves in that position. I mean, shouldn't be there. If you could learn to field a ground ball, there are 3 games that we've pissed away in the SEC with errors, at least. So just give us a couple of those. But again, it's just about being consistent in all facets of the game. If we can get that out of the baseball team, there's no doubt in my mind we'll be fine and we'll be in a regional and.
Wow. We, Kevin, when you were talking about LSU, you mentioned the first place SWAC team beat LSU last Tuesday. They are in the top of the 7th. They hold an 8-5 lead over the Florida Gators.
Oh, I thought you was going to say they were losing 14-1 to New Mexico State JC.
No, they are beating the Florida Gators. The SWAC owns the SEC, baby. I'm hearing.
SWAC is back.
Bethune-Cookman's a good team. Give them credit for that. Now, that being said, everybody loses 1 or 2 of those midweek games. You might even lose a 3. But, again, I think LSU's lost like 6 of them.
Yeah, 6 or 7 now.
And as I look right now to what we're talking about, they're down 2-1 to Northwestern State.
Oh, yep. We are down now.
Why not?
Why not? It's not the 7th inning. We can't. We have to wait till the 7th inning. Anything after the 7th to score.
Yeah, I mean, we're a late. We're an exciting team to watch. We those late comebacks. It's fun baseball. It's not winning baseball, but it's fun for the other team.
Well, any baseball thoughts before we transition again into some football?
Consistent.
I think, again, just the end of this SEC baseball season is going to be really good to watch. You got a lot of good teams. There's a lot of parity. It's going to be fun to watch it play out.
Sorry, it was supposed to be on preview. I jumped the gun a second. Now we're going to transition to Kevin with college football.
So we want to talk spring football. We want to talk legislation. What do we want to talk about?
Sure for him, Kev. Take it over.
Flip a coin and take us to Kev's corner.
All right. So let's talk spring previews. We're going to do some spring previews coming up. We want to probably get all the teams in and talk about some of the spring practices, strengths and weaknesses. Maybe do some top rooms of some teams. Best offensive lines, best secondaries, those type of things. So first thing I would do is reference, Alabama, because everybody likes to talk about Alabama, and how some people want to think they're going to go in the tank. Still a lot of talent on that team. Maybe the best secondary in college football this year, and their secondary looks strong in the spring. So. And then you've got the Mack and Keelan Russell battle at quarterback. Russell played really good, threw for over 400 yards in their 8A game. So we'll want to talk about them. They have a big question mark on their offensive line too, from last year and this year, and their ability to have a running game. So I think we want to talk about that more with them. And that would be the one I would talk about there. LSU, is the offensive line better? You're hearing some good things about the offensive line. Jordan Seaton's been really good. He's reshaped his body. Bo Borderline starting at left guard right now. They've really worked on assignment football, and he's done well picking up blitzes. So to me, that's the interesting thing that we want to preview when we get into LSU. Hearing a lot too about Auburn. They're strong defensively. They bring a lot back, bring the defensive coordinator back. And then Florida is another team that brings a lot of talent back, that you're hearing a lot of good things. Really good wide receiver room at Florida. Philon is a quarterback that came from Tech. A lot of people thought he might be the quarterback, but in the spring game, see, I gotta search his name here. Trammell Jones actually outplayed him in the spring game. Now, Jones was a highly recruited guy. But right now, I think if you went into conference play, really started the season, redshirt freshman, Trammell Jones would likely be their starter. So I like to, let's get into those teams and talking about those things, where they're going to be. Look, Florida's got talent. They had a really talented roster last year. So if they play well, they're going to upset some teams. And then one last team I'll talk about just for the sake of it, Ole Miss is, having their quarterback back, their defense. The Ole Miss people want to talk about how much their defensive line has improved and their defense is better. They did bring some secondary guys through the portal, and so they really have talked about how much better their secondary is. Are they truly better? Is Ole Miss ready to repeat 10-2, 11-1, or do they slide back to 8-4? So I think there's a lot of things that we can get into to preview SEC football and the spring stuff over the next couple of weeks as we continue to do baseball.
Certainly.
Mix in with some of that. Go ahead.
Keep the injuries updated too. There have been a few teams who've lost some major players for the season. This last weekend, LSU lost Aiden Andy season with a torn ACL. It's too bad because he had 2 picks in Saturday's practice, so he was really showing out this spring. He'd put on a little weight, and they had high hopes for him to break into the rotation. Now he's going to miss the season. But the injury bug is getting lots of teams. As I'm going over some of this, Florida's got guys out, Alabama's got guys out. So you just want to get through the spring with everybody healthy and as a coach, a better idea of what you have staff wise, personnel wise. And I think that I think that most teams are just trying to do that right now. I don't even the spring games and that big stuff. I think we're going to see less and less of that just because they're so afraid of getting somebody injured in the spring. DMAC?
Yeah, I am. I'm actually going to see a spring game on Saturday this week. Little American Conference football, the Mean Green, North Texas. You guys, quick question for you. Do you know who the head coach at North Texas is?
Oh,
I can tell you he was at a mid-major and beat the LSU Tigers in 2017.
That would have put him at Troy, probably.
Lindsey? Chip Lindsey?
No. But yes, Troy is the right school. He went on to coach at West Virginia.
West Virginia, yes.
Neil Brown.
Neil Brown. Yeah,
God, I was like Dana Holgers. What am I missing here?
He replaced Morris that went to Oklahoma State. That's right. He's a good coach.
Well, hopefully he's not on the schedule this year. We don't need another whooping. We don't need another whooping from North Texas.
Another former LSU coach, Bradley Del Pivido, is their co-DC. So I will have some insight on maybe a potential front runner for the American this year. We'll see.
Everybody loves Bradley Dale.
So we'll be checking out North Texas football. So next week, I will have some North Texas hot news on how the guys in the Mean Green look.
I can't let you out. I can't let you outdo me. I think I'm not positive. I think Grinnell's last spring practice was today, but they can't have a spring scrimmage because my son says we don't have 5 offensive linemen right now, Dad, that are healthy. So, but they're I don't know if they're playing 7-man football or what the hell they're doing up there, but you know, he was able to get through spring practice pretty healthy, a little hamstring tweak and a busted finger or something. But you know, I mean, that's the life of an offensive lineman. So go Pioneers.
Yeah, go
You know,
Pioneers.
Let's
Cornell
throw back to
champion.
North Texas for a second. So North Texas, if you look at their athletic program the last 7-8 years, they've really had a lot of success. You had McCaslin that ended up at Tech, really good basketball coach. The coach that followed him is the head coach at West Virginia now, who won the basketball tournament out in Vegas over Oklahoma. Eric Morris, you know, did a great job for him, gets the job at Oklahoma State. So Neil Brown's going into a situation there where they've got NIL money. Morris got some of that started. So, you know, North Texas is one of your better mid-major schools in a very good conference there with Memphis and South Florida and those type of teams. So be interesting to see how Brown does. It's a good job.
You know,
Maybe a better job than West Virginia besides the money.
Kev, they're akin to like a Kennesaw State to me because they're in a talent-rich area in a talent-rich state, and they're an up-and-coming program. And they're, you know, I think that they're a school that is going to keep going up just like Kennesaw State is, because they will develop the infrastructure. They have the talent in the area. They just need the infrastructure to build it up. But both those programs are certainly on the rise. I agree with that.
I'm going to go ahead and tonight, April 14th, I'm going to put the Indiana Hoosiers on upset alert September 5th when they play the Mean Green.
They played Kennesaw State last year. Kennesaw held them to like 49. So, I mean, you know, it was better than some teams did.
I don't know that I would go upset alert, but I will tell you this. I think we see Indiana slide back to 9-3 type season this year. I'm looking. We can get into those teams too: the Ohio States, the Indianas, the Michigans, as we do some of the spring football stuff. I think it'd be interesting to talk about. I think Ohio State will be really, really good again. I think Michigan will take a step up. Go ahead.
If Cignetti wins 10 games this year, that dude is a witch. They need to check his blood type because, you know, to come in the way he has and to, you know, he would hit, that would have mean 3 straight portal hits where because he has to hit on everything. He just has to. And he's done it twice. If he does it a third time, you know, he's just better than you. I mean, the dude can coach, he can evaluate talent, and then he can develop the talent, and then he can put the talent into action. So, you know, I mean, I'm not betting against Cignetti anytime soon, but I would love it if North Texas upset.
Yeah, I'm definitely down to talk Michigan football next week or later this week. They really do well with their recruiting staff up there.
Well, they don't have a Michigan man running the program now, but I'm going to tell you guys this because I actually from Utah know Kyle Whittingham, great guy, salt of the earth dude, and if something came out bad about him, that would be when I would really be surprised about if there was some impropriety there. Because I know where you're going, DMAC, but yeah, that's you know, they don't have a Michigan man in charge anymore, so they can probably throw those sexual harassment lawsuits out the window.
While we're talking Michigan football, Sharon Moore, 18 months probation today, home invasion. Any thoughts on that?
That's not a. I mean, other than that 15 minutes he spent when they arrested him, that was it. Wow. I guess a good attorney can get you out of anything, huh?
Yeah. You know,
he definitely. It's going to be interesting.
Disturbance. He's good.
Yeah, I think so. Michigan also did have a recruit today commit to them. They flipped a 4-star quarterback, top 150 guy in the 2027 rankings. He was committed to Illinois, Camden Lapati, and he is now committed to Michigan. He is from Michigan. Interesting thing, tweet last night, there started to be rumors and chirping about it. And Brett Belima actually tweeted out, "What do you know?" question mark to some of the tweets, as if he felt confident he would hang on to him. And one day later, he has flipped his commitment to Michigan. Tough though when you're a Michigan kid growing up. And again, Whittingham's a good coach, good offensive coordinator that he brought with him, Jason Beck. So that's tough. It's tough to turn that down.
Michigan's going to spend money. They're in a good conference, so those kids know they're going to get looked at. Michigan, I can't see them being down for too long because Whittingham's a good coach, and if Larry Ellison will keep his checkbook open, then they're going to be fine. They're going to be fine.
And they needed to find a quarterback quickly after one leaving the team here recently.
Who?
Colin Hurley.
Well, yeah. He went to Michigan. I was just
that was such a surprise commitment out of nowhere when he went there. I really felt like that he might be done, and all of a sudden he committed him there, and I still feel like he's done. We'll see if he goes somewhere.
I kept resetting my page. I was like, Michigan what? Michigan, Northwest JC. Where in Michigan? And it was just like Michigan. That was it. I was like, not the University of Michigan. Sure enough, that didn't last long though. So,
any last minute thoughts before we wrap up tonight?
I hope to see some consistent LSU baseball this weekend because I really hate throwing remotes at TVs. I don't do that, but I've thought about it watching LSU baseball. And just consistent hitting, consistent fielding, consistent pitching, and see what happens. There's a lot of talent on the team. If you do that, there's no doubt LSU should turn it around. Kev?
Yeah, a couple of thoughts from me. Last week you had Arkansas and Ole Miss and Tennessee step up and get sweeps, and they all needed them. Really, if you go back 2 weekends, Ole Miss won their series at Florida. So they won 5 out of 6, and they were in a bad spot. What team this week? Is it State? Is it LSU? Does Oklahoma bounce back with a sweep? I'm curious to see. There'll be an SEC team bounce back. DMAC, it might be your Missouri team. Who knows? But we'll do the previews Thursday. What 2 teams are going to bounce back this week and throw themselves back in the middle of the race? That would be my first overall thought with things. And, I guess that would be it. That would be my thoughts. I want to see who jumps back in it this week. Somebody will.
DMAC?
Yeah, I am ready to catch a spring game since I won't see one here in Baton Rouge this year. No, but on the baseball front, want to see the Tigers put together at least one full complete game. Something we haven't seen here lately in baseball. And then I want to continue to see what the Auburn Tigers can do to progress. Went through 2 tough weeks a few weeks ago. But I do think that if you remove Georgia and Texas, Auburn to me is one of the next 2 or 3 complete teams in the SEC. So want to see how they continue to come back. But again, SEC is still pretty much wide open. You look at LSU, if they get hot and win 15 in a row, they're 21-9 and win the SEC. It's not completely impossible for, even though we've rolled out teams like Missouri, South Carolina, LSU, Vandy are on the bubble there, but everybody still has a chance to somehow make postseason, as to where in years past has not been the case at the halfway point. So we're now halfway through SEC baseball. Got a good half of the season to finish up. So that is it. Anything else, Sweets?
Have a great week.
Cool. Thanks for listening. Remember to like, follow, subscribe. We'll see you Thursday. And remember to tell everybody you know about us.